How did you guys raise the finances? Was it like a Kickstarter thing? Was it something on your own? Did you pool money?
It was mainly Kickstarter. We raised 18 grand through Kickstarter, and then the rest of it was a little bit of money from a few different places, but mainly my tax refund, which as actors you guys probably deal with. You get taxed a lot when you work in a condensed period. I'm an AD, so it's the same thing. I'll get taxed a ton for 4 months, and then I'll get a pretty good tax refund. So we shot our reshoots. We had to wait for my tax refund to come through. Like, that's a true story. Like, we shot a good portion of the movie, knew we needed to do reshoots, and so I'm just waiting on my last, like, W-4 to come in so I can file for my tax refund. Nice. To keep shooting.
Like, line producing, all that good stuff, how many was it favors? How of it was bargaining? Kind of talk the process of, like, how did favors help you? How do you ask for favors? How do you get things for free that maybe you couldn't versus we just negotiated and still had to pay a little bit for this and that?
I mean, it's pretty much all favors. We have a lot of talented friends and a lot of friends that actually do their jobs that they were doing for us for a living. And so it was, we were lucky and the timing kind of worked out very well. But it was an interesting thing to navigate, especially I remember actually coming here to do our deposit paperwork and having like a heart attack because we realized we needed like 10 grand to like put down a deposit, and we were like, we don't have that, like we can't shoot.
We were at Baja Fresh, and my friend who was doing a favor and helping AD on the project could see us freaking out, and she had money in savings, and she was like, I'll write a check for you guys. And then
lent it to us for like the course of the shoot.
Otherwise we couldn't have shot.
Yeah. So there was like things like that. There was a lot of angels along the way that sort of just came through at the right moment. So,
let's talk about casting. You didn't got an audience mainly of actors. You didn't have a casting director. You knew the lead actor already.
Yeah.
How did it go from there in sense of casting the film?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I technically was the casting director. I guess a good portion of the cast is people who went to Ohio University with me. So Jordan, who plays Eugene, Ben, Eric, who plays Dominic, the stage manager, multiple people from the chorus, big bearded John playing the guitar, one of my good buddies from college. And then other than that, it was just people I'd met on projects. Again, I'm an AD, so as the second AD, I interact a lot with the cast. So, hey, Paul Scheer, I have this psychiatrist. Will you do me a favor and come shoot? Okay. Eddie Steeples, still not really sure why or how he wound up in the movie. It was like, he literally, I'm talking to a friend who used to be his assistant, and he was like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm making an OJ musical. We're shooting right now. He's like, Eddie would like that. Do you have any parts for him? I was like, I wrote a landlord the other day. He could play that. And like, I get a text like 5 hours later after I read the script, like, okay, Eddie will be there. And 2 days later, he was behind Phil's house in Los Feliz shooting a scene. That's, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of it is just sort of maintaining relationships, keeping a Rolodex in your head of people you've befriended, and just asking people if they want to do things. I mean, I found that generally speaking, if people aren't busy, everyone's in this for a similar reason. They want to, they want to work on good projects with good people, and so just, keep people in mind and just ask people. And the worst thing they'll say is like, no, I can't do it.
So any auditions at all, or was it just simply all asks?
No, I mean, literally we didn't audition any parts.
Nice.
I did some screen tests at the beginning, simply with like Jordan, just to work stuff out. But generally speaking, there weren't any auditions. The only thing that I guess technically had casting was the company and the musical. That was through Sandy Alisi Casting. I'm good friends with Kristen Barona over there. And so it was like, Kristen, I'm making a musical. Can you please put something on Actors Access and help me find some people who know musical theater? Thank you, please. And next thing we know, we have, like Juilliard-trained people on stage with actors who don't sing.
Because it's the OJ musical.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk about production days. How many production days? Where did you shoot? What was your locations, rehearsals, if any?
There were 16 production days. And then how many, like a week of reshoots.
It was 16.
But it was like
16 days at the beginning. Then Jordan's based out of Brooklyn, so that was a bit of a headache for us. So then Jordan flew out to LA. We drove around the West Coast and shot some stuff. Then Andrew, by the end, it was literally the DP, Andrew, myself. Like the New York stuff, we were the entire crew. It was just me and Andrew and Jordan. And we rented a car and drove to Ohio and shot all the stuff in Ohio. That's his actual grandma. Like, that's his actual house. Like, we just went and shot in his hometown. Like, one of our shots was ruined because his uncle saw us from the side of the road, crawled up behind the Welcome to Orville sign and, like, did, like, a boo to, like, scare us. And we're like, hey, and Jordan, like, has to break character and turn around and be like, hey, Mike, can you, like, go stand 20 feet that way for a second? So yeah, there was a lot of days of that. And then there was 6 days of reshoots in LA. So 27 maybe, 28.
But over the course of a year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you had to wait for the tax
Yeah.
returns.
Yeah.
Yeah. And editing and.
Editing, the whole thing. So then talk about kind of pre-production, things that didn't plan for that you had to readjust for, things that you thought were going to go to a certain way that didn't. Kind of, we'll talk about pre-production, then we'll talk about that element in production. Was there anything in pre-production where you're like, okay, this is something I didn't plan for that I had to solve?
I mean, that $10,000
The SAG deposit was a big one.
Yep.
I mean, it's always a bit of a scramble and being able to readjust constantly. I mean, I think locations were fairly solid, actually, probably more so than a lot of movies that we've actually paid for them that I've worked on.
But yeah, it was a lot of like, I mean, we probably had 4 or 5 different makeup artists in the 16 days. You know, things like that.
We had a couple wardrobe departments.
Yeah.
There was a lot of rotating crew. But there's something, like, people are more flexible on something like this because everybody was just there to have fun and make something. Mm-hmm. And so there's, like, a different expectation, I think, than when you're like, oh, okay, I'm just here for my paycheck and doing my job. And so people were really willing to figure out solutions for things more so than I've seen on a lot of other projects I've worked on.
Nice. Can you take us behind the scenes on any shots where, like, you saw the final product, but this is the story behind getting that final product?
I think the most interesting, I got 2 that are pretty interesting to me at least. The shot where Rosa, the boom operator, is in the shot running on the street. That was basically it's weird when you're directing a project in this genre of mockumentary where I didn't want the crew to ever see rehearsal. Like, generally speaking, you rehearse something so that the crew knows where the lights are and where they can't be pointing their camera. We wanted happy accidents of catching people. So a lot of times when Andrew, our DP, who was also operating, would start shooting, he wouldn't really know what was going to happen. So on that shot with Rosa, I actually went into the theater and told Jordan, I go, run as fast as you can when we shoot this scene and try to see if they can keep up with you. So by the second take, Rosa's ready for him to run. She gets out of the shot, and you don't have that joke. The first time, she had no clue what was happening and is like backpedaling. I was afraid she was going to fall, but it ends up creating this, you know, a little bit more of a documentary feel. We were trying to set it up where, at the beginning, Eugene probably has his hand behind it a lot. He's setting up lights with the film crew, like this is where Regina and I are going to sit. And then toward the end, everything just goes to hell as his life spirals. So there's that, and then I think the biggest production nightmare was when we did the reshoots. I was talking to Malcolm, who plays Lawrence, the day before the reshoots, and he goes, oh, by the way, I don't have a goatee anymore. That was the day before. And so we had a makeup artist who I had never worked with before that was a favor through a friend. Her name was Sunny Buns. I had never met her. And so we suddenly, this is like at midnight, I'm realizing that Malcolm doesn't have a goatee. We had I think an 8 a.m. call time that we pushed to 11 because the beauty supply store didn't open until 10, and it was in a different part of LA. So one of our Swiss Army knives, Shannon, was sitting in her car at the beauty shop waiting for this fake goatee. We're all at my cousin's house in like Calabasas. that wasn't the same house we shot Principal in because we were no longer allowed there. So we're shooting at my cousin's house to match that house with an actor with no goatee. Sonny Bun's waiting for Shannon to land with the fake goatee. I'm sitting there like, I have no idea if we're shooting today. Like, you don't know at that point. And so, you know, I meet Sonny, nice to meet you. Shannon lands with the goatee. Everyone, I'm like, just let them work. We'll check back in a little bit and see how she's doing. And she literally had half the goatee done, and I saw it, and it looked perfect. And I was like, okay, she's a professional. This looks right. Let's go set up lights. And so they finished the rest that looked like a pirate at that point, and he has a fake goatee for about half of the movie.
Wow, wow.
Independent film production.
Yes. We're encouraging our actors to create their own works. So from directing or maybe even writing and producing, what would you encourage them to think about or plan for as they create their project?
Take a sip of water.
Okay. I think, well, two things I would say. The first being build relationships and networks of people that do all of these different things. I mean, filmmaking is one of the most collaborative efforts that I've ever seen, and whether people are perfect at their job or not, as long as they're excited and willing to be there, you can usually come up with something pretty awesome. And then the other thing is being both realistic about the project and like making and developing it to a point where it's good before you shoot it, because you do a lot, and if you don't start with a good product, you're probably not going to end with a good product. You're definitely not going to end with a good product. So it's like you might as well not waste your time. So the script is super key. And be realistic about, like, don't be like, yeah, we're going to shoot a sci-fi movie for like $5,000 and everyone's going to be an alien. Like, it's just not going to happen. So that would be.
Yeah, I think for me it's similar. It's, you know, I think there's nothing more valuable you can do, especially in today's day and age with these. You know, I mean, we shot that thing on a Canon 7D and a VHS. So generally speaking, you can do stuff at a very cheap budget line, and I highly recommend people to go out there with their friends and make projects. I also highly advise you to not immediately post those on YouTube, start a Kickstarter, and tell every single person to go support it until you're at that point where you really believe like this is the one. Because you can only go back to the same people so many times and try to get them to support you. There's only so many times I can ask someone to come out for free and bring a camera package that they spent $20,000 putting together and shoot something for me for free. So it's accumulate favors, keep them ready to go, and then when you're at the point where you have something you really do believe in, that's the point to start a Kickstarter page. That's the point to, you know, call your friends and ask them to get together and do it. And yeah, I'm good with that answer.
I'm gonna end with this because we hear a lot of people up here talk about also plan for film festivals and financially do
Oh
that.
yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Since you had to wait for the tax return to finish the film.
Yeah.
What was the financing like to get it out to the masses?
Financing, and also being really even if you're going and shooting stuff with your friends, if you're ever gonna sell it to anyone, it has to be super organized. Like, you have to have all the paperwork. You have to have, like, it sucks, and like that's like the last thing you want to be. That was kind of one of my jobs on set, because I was actually shooting while we were shooting. I was working and shooting another thing, so I would kind of show up and like do paperwork for like an hour and be like, okay, everybody here has some sort of contract, we'll figure it out later. And like literally ended with just like this binder of things that I had to sort through. But you have to have that in the end. And when you go to sell it to, like when we ended up getting digital distribution with Film Buff, and you know, you have to have all of that stuff in line and be able to say, you know, someone's not going to sue us. And
to go with the last answer, if you don't know anything about that, find a Maura.
Yeah.
Like, that's the key. It's like know what you can bring to the table and know what you can't. We weren't that concerned about having, you know, ADs on set, especially toward the end, because both of us know how to make a call sheet and know how to schedule a movie.
Yeah.
But we needed sound equipment. Like, you know, it's just know what you can bring to the table.
Also learn about the different positions, because like if you're doing a film for nothing, an office PA or an APOC might really want to production manage, and like that's a great step up for them, and it's great experience for them, and they're gonna have, if they don't have the skill set, they're gonna have people that they can ask if they're missing something. So that whole like providing opportunities for people to move up is a really great way of getting a crew.
And on the film festival question, a lot of it is getting into a first few film festivals. We spent a lot of money at the beginning entering film festivals. Maura was getting mad at me because I just kept putting things on my personal credit card because I was like, we have to enter it. I have to do this. But once a project starts to catch steam, suddenly it's like you have 5 festivals in a 3-week span, none of which you paid for entry because people read about you from another festival, and so.
Yeah, it's like, don't get discouraged either, because most people don't want to be the first risk taker. So I mean, as soon as we got into like 1 or 2, it was kind of a windfall from there.
And it's constantly changing. That's the biggest thing I've learned as well, is that, like, I made a movie 6 years ago, and all the information on the internet says, if you have a feature film, you have to premiere at South by or Sundance or Tribeca or LA Film Festival, and that's it. And do not premiere anywhere else. That was good advice before the 5D and 7D came out and before there were 6,000 features being entered into these festivals. At this point right now, with agencies packaging projects and talking to Sundance ahead of time, for a movie like ours, there's realistically 4 slots in Sundance, probably 0. That's just what it is. And so I think we probably spent too much time following old advice as opposed to recognizing where the world is at today. And the best things that I've gotten in this experience for me when I was figuring it out at first was contacting anyone I knew who had feature films that had played at festivals. And I would sit down with them. I'd be like, hey, can I get you a cup of coffee? Can you meet with me? And now that I've been through the process, I've done that countless times for other people who are like, hey, I'm just starting the journey. I'm first reaching out to distributors. What have you learned? Yeah. So I think that's the biggest thing, too, is just finding people that have went down the path that you would like to go down and try to get as much knowledge from them as you can.
Yeah. I think coming up with some sort of marketing strategy, if you can, too, is a good, like before, even if it's before you shoot, just knowing your audience and knowing, because like kind of like what you said, I mean, Sundance is a hard example, but like if you make a horror movie, it's probably not going to premiere at Sundance. Like it's going to go to like Fantastic Fest or like go to places where it's meant to be, and like know that before and be smart about how you're focusing your energy, because it's a lot of energy. Like the sales and festival process is like so much more energy than I ever thought it could be, and more for you than me probably.
And so is Tug, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
I think it's a great place to end. Let's give him a hand and say thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.